Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Roof open, nice weather. I mean, it was set up for the perfect, just absolute perfect Sunday afternoon, and well, that's not exactly what happened. It was far from perfect on Sunday. Cardinals lost, and yes, they lost. They were not beaten. And MJ, there is a difference between a team losing and getting beat. Beat means the team was just better than you. When you lose, well, that's more on you, and that's what happened to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, they had every opportunity in that fourth quarter to secure the victory. We're going to get into some of the details. You know, I thought they made progress last week, and I'm not into moral victories, but I thought the offense showed some flashes, had more first downs than the Chiefs, time of possession, third down conversions. They held the Chiefs to 26 points. I know they only scored 14, but I was encouraged. And, after yesterday's game, driving home after the post-game show and stuff I mentioned last night, was that I thought this team took a step back, and you want to continue to show progress. Now, we can get into some of the particulars here. We know they're playing a young quarterback, and they got to protect him, and they got to get more talent around him, but that's not going to happen overnight. That will happen in the offseason, so it's status quo. But that was a disappointing loss to the Raiders. Now, I'll give them credit. They made plays when they had to, and they won that football game.
You are judged by wins and losses, but at this point in the season, a lot of it is what kind of progress you're making, and you can say that there was no progress made, at least big picture-wise. There were some individuals that made some progress. We'll get into that, but certainly a disappointing loss on Sunday at State Farm Stadium. All right, on this Monday afternoon, time to take off here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. What's ahead on the show today? We'll recap Sunday's loss. Corey Peters inside the locker room sounds off. Just how will this team respond now these final 6 games? Despite the disappointment, yeah, there were a handful of positives. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. We do that towards the end here on Cards Cover 2. But before all of that, the news of the day, and quoting the head coach, Steve Wilks, open to a lot of anything. That was his response earlier today when asked about changes. Now, keep in mind, there's only so much you can do mid-season, yet at the same time, if you're not doing something different, then what do they say? The definition of insanity is keep repeating your same mistakes, and the Cardinals want to avoid that, making sure that Sunday doesn't become 2 losses, 3 losses, 4 losses.
Yeah, it's tough to reshuffle the deck. Now, I'll point one thing out, maybe a couple things, and that is I thought Corey Cunningham, he was active in the previous game, did not see a real NFL snap. He's made progress in practice. He's probably part of their future when it comes to a swing tackle, and he started at left tackle in place of DJ Humphries. And he got off to a slow start, but I thought he settled in as the game kind of wore down a little bit. Not as the game progressed, he didn't wear down. Now, he was on the ground a few times watching the film this morning, but I think on paper, Craig, I would put him at right tackle right now.
Right now.
Right now. I mean, nothing against Andre Smith. He's been struggling the last couple of weeks. It looks heavy to me. I don't know if he has weight-ins. Every player does, and you got to be a certain weight. But listen, he's under contract next year, but the future is Corey Cunningham. If the Cardinals draft a tackle in the first round, he'll likely be your right tackle. Humphries will be your left tackle, and then you got Corey Cunningham as your swing tackle. So I would not hesitate. And according to Steve Wilks, it looks like they're going to continue with Andre Smith. And he referred to Corey Cunningham on my question as a swing tackle. They know more than I do, but I would put Cunningham in there right now.
Well, we'll see what happens later on throughout the week. And for Coach, it's up to the coaches and the players to get things figured out quick, fast, in a hurry.
I mentioned last night, coaches and players both have 50-50 in this. So we got to continue to try to do a great job of putting these guys in position to be successful. But then most importantly, they got to do a great job of executing. And right now, being 2-8, you're open for a lot of things, from a standpoint of, personnel changes, things that you think will give us an opportunity to be successful and win a football game. I think, number one, I think we have great leaders in the locker room. And I put a lot on those guys. But as coaches, as I just talked to the coaches before we came down with the players, they're going to feed off our energy. No one is happy based off where we are right now. Very disappointed in the loss that we had. But, one loss can turn into two if we continue to try to linger on this. We got to find a way to get this film corrected, point out the good things and correct the bad things and move forward.
In addition to the offensive line, because that's been a constant state of flux, and Cunningham, at least when given the opportunity, looked very, very good a handful of times. And, yeah, he admitted it after the ball game to Paul Calvisi that second play of the ball game in which he was beaten, and it kind of realized, all right, the game is a little bit faster in the NFL, but then he kind of responded and backed off and played very, very well. But in addition to Cunningham, I mean, who else would you like to see on either side of the ball?
Well, I think it's time for Jamar Taylor to find the bench. And listen, this isn't personal. This is a production business, and I'm going to get into it right now with Budda Baker. There was a downward spiral effect. We talked about this in the postgame. Without Budda Baker, and we'll give you the injury update coming up here because there's a lot of good news of guys possibly returning for the Chargers game. So Budda's out. We knew that on Friday. He was listed as out. Well, all of a sudden, Jamar Taylor gets a start, and he has not played up to par. And that means Ben Wickery now is also, he's kind of a utility guy. He can play inside, outside, and safety. Unfortunately, the more playing time he gets, the more holes you see in his game. Now, he's come in here and added depth on the roster. He's familiar with Wilkes and Holcomb's system, but losing Budda Baker was big to me, and it's not like Jared Cook. Yeah, he had a nice big catch and all that, but for the most part, the tight ends didn't hurt them as much as they have in the past, and he's really one of the better tight ends, and really, when they don't have a whole lot of wide receivers, he's the go-to guy for Derek Carr. So I think you got to mix it up in the secondary a little bit, but getting Budda Baker back will go a long way because I think everyone can go back to their natural positions, and that means that Ben Wickery could play opposite of Peterson. You're probably going to get him some help with safety top over the top. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's one of the other things I would do on defense.
Well, we did see Leonard Johnson a number of plays in place of Taylor and he just arrived a week or so ago, and all of a sudden he gets thrust into the mix. And look, when you are struggling and you are trying to figure out who you can trust out there, you might have to throw guys in off the street just to figure out how we can get things kind of sorted out.
Yeah, he's number 27, Leonard Johnson. He did give up a pass play, pretty good coverage, but obviously he wasn't able to defend the ball coming in, and it was a nice reception, nice throw by Carr. It was a sideline play. But, yeah, you're right. He hasn't even been here a week. He wore number 27, so curious to see what they do. They have an option there. I think he's a guy that they want to see what he can do in the future. But right now you're just trying to mix and match, but you obviously want to get your best players on the field for down and distance.
The other name, Trent Sherfield, got his first NFL catch on Sunday. And at one point, and I pointed this out to you during the game, first quarter, 5 rookies on the offensive side of the ball on the field at the same time. Now, 6 different rookies played throughout the entire game when you count Christian Kirk and Sherfield together as wide receivers. But you got your center, you got your your left tackle, your center, your quarterback, your running back when Edmonds is on the field, and a wide receiver or 2.
Yeah, and that's encouraging to me. I know that, that's not the ideal situation. Shipley would be starting. If Chad Williams was better, maybe Trent Sherfield doesn't dress. So there's reasons why, but I really like this draft class, and I made the comment that I think it's Steve Kine's best draft class. We'll go down back to 2015. That was a really good draft class, a lot of production there from David Johnson, and obviously a guy like Marcus Golden. So they got to continue to stack that. But Sherfield's a guy that's really cut his teeth on special teams. Now he's getting more reps as a wide receiver. And maybe it's because Chad Williams has been down, but Sherfield has been active more on special teams than as a wide receiver.
10 games into head coach Steve Wilkes' first time as a head coach. He was asked earlier on Monday, is it more difficult as a head coach than he perhaps thought it would be?
I think it is a hard process, and I knew it was going to be hard coming in. I wouldn't even think it was going to be remotely easy. Did I expect to be where we are? No. But again, you got to learn how to persevere. You got to learn how to continue to push and be that example. I'm not going to quit. That's why I just told the guys, and neither are they. So we're going to find a way to get on track and win a football game.
On the injury front, Coach made reference to Dayon Buchanan, who exited the ball game on Sunday. He has a chest contusion, otherwise known as a bruise. How much time, if any, Buchanan will miss is still kind of up in the air, but a handful of players who did not play on Sunday: Budda Baker, DJ Humphries, Robert Kimdichie, and Chad Williams. Coach is, quote, hopeful that they will be ready to play Sunday in Los Angeles when they take on the Chargers. And, of course, that would be good, especially with Baker and then Humphries as well, kind of shore up the offensive line and in the back end on the defensive side. Phil Dawson as well. Wilkes said he just did not want to chance it on Sunday, and that's why Matt McCrane was doing the kicking and made all 3 of his extra point tries. Did not have a field goal attempt, but just how healthy is Dawson? Well, later on Monday afternoon, McCrane was released. So that tells you all you need to know. Phil Dawson will be back on the field and resume his kicking duties.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me. Once the season's over, the Cardinals can extend their roster to 90. It's called futures contract. And if he's still available, I do think the Cardinals would consider bringing him to camp and maybe bring in some competition. But they really like Matt McCrane. It's just that he doesn't have the experience of Phil Dawson. So if he doesn't get picked up in the next 6 weeks, and that's possible, you're looking around the league, guys are missing extra points, they're missing field goals, but I don't know if you can go into the postseason with a rookie kicker who really hasn't had a lot of pressure kick. So if he's available 6 or 7 weeks from now, I anticipate they'll bring him back.
All right, here's how it went down on Sunday at State Farm Stadium. Cardinals hosting the Raiders, the second of 3 matchups against the AFC West. First quarter, and this is the second play of the ball game. Josh Rosen pressured, steps up, gets hit, and his pass intended for Larry Fitzgerald is intercepted by Garyon Conley, and Conley returns it to the Arizona 32-yard line. The Raiders capitalize on that. Derek Carr with the pump fake finds Jared Cook wide open for a touchdown, 23 yards for the score, and a 7-0 Oakland lead not even 3 minutes into the ball game. Cook beat Jamar Taylor with a double move. Cardinals next possession, driving, looking to respond. Rosen looks right, then left, and sees Larry Fitzgerald behind the defense. Touchdown, and the game is tied at 7 with 6:14 to play. A 9-play drive that saw 7 runs, including 5 by Johnson. Still in the first quarter, third down and 9, and look out, Chandler Jones fights his way upfield, sacks Carr to get the Raiders off the field. After a second 3-and-out forced by the defense, it's 3rd and 5. Rosen checks out of the play, throws quick to Christian Kirk. He breaks a tackle and is gone. 59 yards for the touchdown as the Cardinals take their first lead of the ball game, 14-7.
Yeah, I know the tight ends don't get a lot of credit for blocking. You got to give Ricky Seals-Jones and also Jermaine Gresham credit. They were able to seal the edge, and there was a lot of talk going into the draft that Christian Kirk doesn't have speed. I think he's quiet the critics.
His 22nd birthday on Sunday as well. Second quarter, Carr, no one open downfield, and Zach Moore comes up with the sack, his 3rd of the season. Cardinals sack Carr 4 times. Ensuing Cardinals drive. Rosen back to pass, looks for Trent Sherfield, and the ball is deflected. Carl Joseph with the pick. The second interception thrown by Rosen, 10th this season.
I don't know if I make this throw. You're throwing in traffic. The ball was tipped. He can't control that. Interception number 2 for Josh Rosen.
That play helps sets this up. 3rd down, Carr rolls to his right, throws towards the end zone, and Brandon LaFell is there, gets some separation from Patrick Peterson, and the game is tied again, 14-14. Second quarter still, Rosen is sacked, the one and only time the Raiders brought Rosen down all afternoon. 2 minutes to go, Rosen and the Cardinals looking to drive, put some points on the scoreboard. Throws to Sherfield. That's a 6-yard pickup and his first NFL catch. Rosen again throwing. This time it's the quick screen to Johnson. This play gains 17 yards, and the Cardinals look like they're in business. They did not. Disaster. Rosen drops the snap. There's also a false start, and the drive ends with a punt. We move to the second half. 3rd and 6. Carr steps up. Pocket collapses, and Antoine Bethea with the sack, his 2nd of the season. Forces the Raiders to try a field goal, 49 yards by Daniel Carlson. Raiders retake the lead 17-14. Raiders with the ball again, 3rd and goal, and DeAndre Washington stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Bethea with the finishing hit. Raiders once again forced to kick a field goal. This one good from 21 yards out, and it's 20-14 with 22 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. 4th quarter, midway through, Johnson, huge hole. Corey Cunningham and Mason Cole. Johnson goes 53 yards, goes over 100 rushing yards for the first time this season. Same drive, third down, Rosen with time, throws towards the sideline, and Kirk makes a great catch, gets both feet in bounds, and the Cardinals are looking at 1st and goal. 6th play of the drive, Rosen on the bootleg rollout, and there's Fitzgerald, his 2nd touchdown of the game. The Cardinals are in front 21-20.
I really like the play call from Byron Leftwich there. Rosen rolls out. You know, Larry had tight coverage, but obviously Larry's going to be able to get a little bit of separation and go to old, reliable Larry Fitzgerald for the touchdown.
115 career touchdowns for Mr. Fitzgerald. Carr now looking for the Raiders to respond. In the pocket, throws a deep ball to the left. Marcel Aitman gets behind Benet Benwickery, and the play gains 32 yards. Raiders in field goal position. Seth Roberts, a 20-yard catch and run. Once again, the clock is stopped. 2 seconds left. Carlson lines up for a 35-yard field goal. It goes through. The Raiders win it 23-21. John Gruden all smiles as the Raiders snap a 5-game losing streak. Wilkes and the Cardinals drop to 2-8 on the season. Just a bad loss for the Cardinals, who have now dropped each of their past 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, football's not played on paper, but if you just look at both of the rosters and the guys that were active, the Cardinals have more talent. We can go through some of the particulars. In the Josh Bynes dropped interception, that probably puts him in great situation to possibly, seal the deal there. And then you go back to the Jermaine Gresham penalty. He's got to be smarter than that. You can't afford that. Now, I went back and watched the David Johnson run, which was called back by Ricky Seals-Jones. Johnson is in the backfield. He's trying to find a hole. He's trying to find a crease. He literally doesn't reach Ricky Seals-Jones for about 5 seconds. I'm watching Ricky Seals-Jones block, and he doesn't have any idea what's going on behind him because he has his player, the guy that he's blocking, really. And then at the very end, he starts to hold him. So it was a good call by the official. Unfortunately, Ricky Seals-Jones couldn't let go in that 6 second, and I still think that David Johnson would have been able to get the first down, and the clock would continue to remain, and that would have helped the Cardinals because late in the game they were playing against the clock. And then Benwickery on that coverage, you can't allow. They weren't playing prevent defense, but you can't allow a guy to get behind you when you're trying to protect a lead. So a lot of miscues, and it eventually cost the Arizona Cardinals this football game. Give the Raiders credit though; they made plays down the stretch. They had the opportunity to win, and they took care of business.
Mistakes, mental errors, especially late, as MJ just chronicled. Dave Pasch and Ron Wolfley now discuss here on the 2-Minute Drill.
Welcome to the Arizona Cardinals 2-Minute Drill with Ron Wolfley. I'm Dave Pasch. Wolf, there were about 8 or 9 things that the Cardinals didn't do in the final 3 minutes. If they do one of them, they probably win the game. So if you can, try to sum up what you saw in the final 3 minutes of that game that led to a loss.
David, it was just brutal, absolutely brutal. Once again, I have to go back to the offense and the offense giving the defense a lead. The fact that they had the lead in this game and they were in the fourth quarter and it was late, it was inside of 5 minutes, and if the defense would have just been able to do their job, this never would have come down to a situation where the Cardinals were going to lose the game. I don't mean that to be an excuse for the offense and what the offense did, because they made so many mistakes, so many self-inflicted mistakes tonight that you can't excuse that play either.
2 interceptions by Josh Rosen, but 3 touchdown passes. And then obviously you had the penalty by Jermaine Gresham that stopped the clock. Raiders don't have a timeout. The only stoppage they would get would be the 2-minute warning, which hadn't happened yet. Then you have the holding call, which negates a touchdown. And then you have the ball thrown over Benwickery's head. And then also on 3rd and 10, they get 20 yards. The Raiders almost run their kicking team out. They send them back to the sideline. Derek Carr spikes the ball with 2 seconds left, and they win the game with a 35-yard.
Once again, self-inflicted things happen to the Arizona Cardinals. And I've been on a lot of bad teams, and right now this is a team that is bad. At 2-8, they have been struggling, and a lot of it is because of self-inflicted wounds, and you just broke it down for the most part. Again, now they have to pick themselves up and say, what can we salvage for the rest of the year? And that's going to come from leadership inside that locker room. It's going to come from the players themselves that are going to say, this is not going to be the way that we're going to finish the rest of the season.
We needed about a 10-minute drill to cover this one, especially the final 3 minutes of what took place today. Cardinals are now 2-8. Next 2 games on the road, at Green Bay in 2 weeks, and next week in L.A. to take on the Chargers. And that'll do it for this edition of the 2-Minute Drill.
Appreciate that, gentlemen. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Cardinals and Raiders on Sunday. This, as we break it down here on Cards Cover 2, we do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 o'clock. Of course, you can find us on azcardinals.com/live video. Also on YouTube, just search Cards Cover 2. And, of course, if you ever miss an episode, download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn.
You know, you start looking at these false start penalties, okay? To me, they had, I want to say 3. 1 happened during a drive. 2 of the 3, though, happened as the Cardinals were going on the field on first down.
So now you're playing from behind. They behind the sticks.
That is a pre-snap whistle, okay? A pre-snap penalty. That shouldn't happen. I mean, they're on the sidelines together. They're running on the field together. The play's being called in the huddle. They break the huddle. And then you get 2 false starts. I mean, to me, Craig, sometimes you got to play football between the ears. Like Jermaine Gresham. I understand he was sticking up for Larry Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is not worried about that. Larry wants to win the game along with everyone else, including Gresham. You have to be smarter than that. Sometimes it's not about, getting the last punch in. And again, I appreciate him sticking up for his teammate, especially Larry Fitzgerald. He should stick up for everyone, and I get that, and he's willing to do that. So I don't want to dismiss that. But you have to be smarter down in distance where you are in the game and how is this going to affect my football team.
Leadership, and it's something that you heard Ron Wolfley touch on in that 2-minute drill. How will these players now in that Cardinals locker room respond? How will they treat these final 6 games? And these final 6 games could go a long way in determining the future, the immediate future, not only for those on the field but on the sidelines as well as far as 2019 is concerned. And do the players stand up, show some pride, some professionalism, or do they fold, start thinking about the offseason?
Well, again, we talk about, the Cardinals are going to have close to $70 million in the offseason. You know what that means? They got a lot of free agents. And I don't mean to be redundant, but these guys think the grass is greener. That's fine. Let them go out there and see what they're worth. And if they feel like they're worth that, then they'll sign elsewhere. But for the most part, like Rodney Gunter, he's playing well. I would like to see the Cardinals extend him. There's other guys that I hope they extend. They got to make that decision in the offseason. But my point is, you go to a new team, and teams are already scouting 300 free agents for next year. Their scouting department is working on that as we speak, along with the Arizona Cardinals. What they're going to do, they're going to look at the last 4 to 8 games and see how were you playing. Were you playing hard? Were you playing not to get hurt? Because the film, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. So everyone, regardless if you're going to be here with the Cardinals or you're going to be moving on to another team because A, they don't want you, or you want to cash in, which is your prerogative, they're going to look at the film, and they will look at the film what happened in the first half of the season to see how you were playing and the second half.
One of those leaders in that Cardinals locker room, in fact, he wears a C on his chest, Corey Peters, standing up in front of the media on Sunday and addressing just that point.
I mean, I think for us, I think it's important to just let it burn for a little bit, let it burn through tomorrow, and we'll start getting ready for the Chargers on Wednesday. So I think it's important for us to feel this, to realize that it's unacceptable, to realize how much work and how far we have to go. So we need to get back to work, and we need to be focused on that. I mean, this is the NFL, and you are what your record says you are. So right now we're not a very good football team, but I think a lot of it is, our own fault. So I guess you could take some solace in that, knowing that if we correct the things that we need to get corrected, we can make steps forward.
Is there a particular lesson in this one that needs to be learned?
I mean, we just have to be more consistent. I don't know if that's necessarily particular to this game, but it's kind of been the same story all year. I think we played well at times today, and obviously at the end of the game we didn't make the plays that we needed to make.
I got the ultimate respect for Corey Peters. I'm a big fan. He does everything the right way. He's a good player. He's probably the more underrated or underappreciated player. He wears that C for a reason. He's not a guy that's going to hoot and holler. He stands at his locker. If you want to ask him a question, he'll turn around and answer every question that comes his way. They have good players, good leaders in that locker room, but they need more Corey Peters players in that locker room.
Well, another one who wears the C in that locker room, Antoine Bethea, after the ballgame, quote, "It's not playing smart, just beating ourselves." And we've chronicled what happened in those final 5 minutes. David Johnson drops a screen pass. Josh Bynes drops an interception. Jermaine Gresham called for unnecessary roughness. Ricky Seals-Jones called for holding. Bené Benwickery allows the receiver to get behind him. Those are 5 plays in the last 5 minutes. Cardinals defense had the Raiders 3 and out twice, but that third and final drive, unable to get the Raiders off the field. And you can question some of the play call decisions, but remember, at that point in the ball game, you're playing for the clock. You want that clock to bleed. That's why you're handing the ball off. But that screenplay should have been caught. Josh Bynes, you'll ask him, should have made that catch as far as the interception. I get it. It's a linebacker, and you're not a wide receiver. The ball comes at you differently when you're not really expecting it. But those plays late in games, and we're all focused on these final 5 minutes, but that's where games are won and lost.
Craig, over the weekend, going into tonight, 8 of 11 games were decided by 3 points or less. We talked about this on the post game. You look at the Bears game. You look at the Seahawks game. You look at yesterday's game. They've lost by a total of 7 points in 3 games. This is the NFL.
And that's 3 home games.
Right. This is the NFL. You just watch the Red Zone channel. You and I are waiting for kickoff, whether it's 2:05 or 2:25, and we're seeing these teams because you're now in hurry-up offense and teams are playing prevent defense. Usually a football game comes down to 5 or 6 plays. Now, we can go into what happened in the first quarter with Rosen throwing the pick. That obviously 2 picks led to 14 points. So there's other things in the game, but when it comes down to the fourth quarter in the last 5 minutes, you have to be on your P's and Q's. You can't afford to drop a screen pass where you continue to get the clock going and it's going to be on your side when the game is over, and you're going to look at the scoreboard and go, we won the game because we were able to possess the ball, get a couple first downs, and not allow them to get the ball back so they can score a field goal.
Look, mistakes are going to happen. There is no such thing as a
physicality is going to happen too.
Yes, it's what's between the ears, and especially now happening here week 11. That's the concerning point, part of all of this, and that's something that Josh Rosen addressed on Sunday.
It's frustrating, and we're working on it. You either quit or you don't quit, and I promise you we won't.
What happened to the offense in the middle 2 quarters, from your perspective?
I don't know. I think we just didn't execute a lot of things. I mean, I can't recall the whole 2 quarters, but I mean, I just remember being frustrated with a lot of little things. None of them were very. I mean, no disrespect to the Raiders, but we feel as though we were the better football team there, and that's why this one was really frustrating. I don't really think it matters who the opponent is. It's just kind of how we lost and the fact that we kind of had that game, and I mean, I think if there's an expression that exists of finding a way to lose, I think it applies here. We found a way to lose, and AB, Antoine said it sort of to a T. We got to find a way to win.
How do you find those ways if the wins aren't coming? I mean, how do you learn to win if you're not winning?
We obviously don't have the answers right now, but we'll search this week. It's got to do with everything from preparation to film study to your tempo and practice and everything, and approaching everything at 100% full go. So I don't have an answer for you because if I had it, we wouldn't have lost. But I know we will address it and continue to push forwards.
Now, I'll say this. I'm not worried about Josh Rosen losing his confidence. He knows what's going on here. He's not going to throw anybody under the bus. Clearly, he's going through some growing pains, and it's going to continue as long as defenses look at a rookie quarterback. And he was only sacked once. He was only quarterback hit once, but I don't have the hurries and pressures and knockdowns because they were in his face. He wasn't able to step up in the pocket. Listen, you want to make the guys that are under contract for the next couple of years, you want to see them make progress. But this right now where we are at, this is all about Josh Rosen's development. And I'm not worried about him losing confidence. Trust me, I'm not. I'm worried about him taking too many hits. And I think Byron Leftwich has been really good for him. So maybe they didn't have the game they wanted yesterday compared to the last couple of games when they were kind of trying to find David Johnson a role and Larry Fitzgerald. We're seeing their numbers pick up. But they got to protect him better. He needs to at least not try to throw in traffic. I know he's trying to make a play, But I'm not worried about him losing confidence. I just want to see him make progress. So when we go into the offseason, we say, you know what? You can check that box. He is going to be here for the next 8 to 10 years.
Well, the interceptions, they're going to happen, but it's the number of interceptions and what's happening after those interceptions. And the two on Sunday led to 14 points by the Raiders. But you just look at this offense as a whole now as we switch away from those last 5 minutes to what happened in the first 3 quarters. 14 points in the first quarter. That's great. And he'll score again until the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left to go. And in that third quarter, you had the ball for like a handful of plays and gained 13 yards.
All right, after the first quarter, they had 9 possessions, 7 punts, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception.
You have to be able to move the ball and put points on the scoreboard. The 21 points, second time this season that they've hit the 20-point mark. In this day and age, look at all the offensive numbers. Everyone is killing it. 30 points, 35 points, 40 points, and the Cardinals are struggling to hit that 20-point mark.
Now, once again, we had talked about this earlier in the season. They only had 54 offensive plays. That means you're not converting on third down. That means the defense isn't giving you a short field to play with. It's a combination. It's not one thing. But obviously, it's a situation where he's got to get more talent around him. I think that's obvious. And hopefully, if Chad Williams comes back, I'm not real confident because he's been very inconsistent. We know Nelson. There was a play yesterday where Nelson was wide open, and Rosen didn't see him. Who knows if he would have caught it? Maybe he gets a pass interference call, but he was open. But Josh made a throw to the right. He looked like he was locked on the receiver. He made his decision early. He wasn't holding on to the ball, so that's a good sign there. But they got to get more talent around him, including the offensive line, and I think we all know that.
It's just it's frustrating, and I understand the passion of the Cardinals fan base, but when you're seeing what appears to be every team in the NFL put points on the board and do it somewhat consistently, and your team can't. And that's something, yes, it's not just one person, one unit, but you have to figure it out collectively as a group, and it might not happen here this season. And even if it does, with the amount of roster turnover, there's no guarantee that momentum goes from one season to the next. It's very, very hard when turnover is 50% on most teams. So who knows who's still going to be here, and then with the new pieces come in, fit with those old pieces to kind of mesh and get a good quality team.
All right, San Francisco 49ers, since John Lynch has been the GM, 82% turnover on the roster. Since John Gruden has been in Oakland less than a year, over 60% turnover on the roster. Now, some of it was his doing, getting rid of Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper, Bruce Irvin, so it's a little bit of a combination. But, yeah, that's the roster turnover when you bring in a new staff. And in this case, maybe we'll see if Reggie McKenzie's the general manager in the next couple of years. But that's what happens when John Lynch comes in, Steve Keim comes in. They're going to turn that roster over. And now, again, we talk about the scouts and the GM need to go to the coaches, and I think they have an idea what they need to do is go out and find players that fit the scheme. So we're not having this conversation about a 4-3 true defense, a 4-2-5. They can't pass protect, or they're not great in run blocking. You have to address those issues. Unfortunately, that has to happen in the offseason.
Now, Rosen did have a career-high 3 touchdown passes, and it's good to see him not let those interceptions affect him, and then also, of course, coming into the fourth quarter, stepping up in big situations as he did, putting the Cardinals in front 21-20. His favorite target on Sunday, Christian Kirk, turned 22 on Sunday, but also turning into quite the pro as a rookie. He had 3 catches for 77 yards, and I think we're seeing the development of him and that combination going all the way back to the offseason, as those two have known one another for a long, long time. But after the ball game for Kirk, it was just another learning experience for the rookie.
The message was just we gotta learn to win. We gotta learn to finish. That's all it is. We clearly, all the respect out to the Raiders, but we clearly beat ourselves. Too many mental errors, too many mental mistakes, by us. Me personally as well. Just keep learning and trying to eliminate those. But it's just the little things for us execution-wise that kind of shooting us in the foot.
Take us through the catch and the touchdown run. How were you able to kind of get loose there in the first half and get the end zone?
Well, Josh saw they were bringing pressure, and that's one of our checks is a little quick screen, and The blocks were amazing by the front line, and Ricky came in, at the end and sealed that last guy, and all I had to do was just catch it and score. And so, they did a great job. We did a great job executing on that one.
What was working well for the offense when you guys got going and were able to move the ball down the field, and why did it not happen for large periods of time today?
Well, I think, when you see us move the ball the most is whenever we can get David and Chase going in the run game, and whenever we're ripping off, 8 to 10 yard chunks, on runs, and then able to set up our pass game. That's when the offense is really flowing. It's when, we get behind the sticks, penalties, holding, or even just, tackles for loss. That's when our offense kind of stutters.
Kirk now second among rookie receivers with 495 receiving yards and 36 catches. That's a positive.
I'm looking for this connection for years to come, and I think he's proven he can play at this high level, whether he's inside or outside. And I love the fact that Josh recognized that they were bringing the blitz. What do? You get rid of the ball. It was a check route, and he threw the perfect pass to him, quick pass, and he goes off to the races. He got good blocking, first of all, from Gresham, and as he pointed out, Ricky Seals-Jones, he sealed the edge, so he was able to get that. This guy, he gets open. You can put him on the outside, inside. I'm still waiting for him to return a punt.
It's going to happen. It's just been so close. We even saw it on Sunday. He turned the corner and
yes,
it's almost, he turns the corner and it's like you're in a vehicle and you got the stick shift. I don't even know if stick shifts even work anymore. But all of a sudden you turn it into gear, and it just has another burst. From like 0 to 60 in a split second, he turns the corner and heads up the sideline.
I've been talking about this since training camp. What I do in training camp, I try to watch a position every day, and then next day I'll look at another position. And I was just surprised of how he gets off the line of scrimmage. His first 5 yards, Craig, he's one of the fastest guys on the team. Now there's other receivers, when you get to 5 to 10, they are able to kick it in gear and maybe be a little bit faster. But if he gets off press coverage and he's so agile where he can turn his hips in different directions, I really like that. And that's the way he gets open. And then yards after catch, he must lead the team in yards after catch.
Well, the Cardinals need more Christian Kirks as far as people for Rosen to throw the football to. And right now, outside of Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, there's not really many options if you don't include David Johnson in that category. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. It's Cards Cover 2. We'll hear from the Bird Gang as they sound off here on this Monday using the hashtag Cards Cover 2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show here. But in addition to Kirk, some of the other positives, and that's what you're looking for as far as moving forward. I've been big on Andy Lee for a long time now, but as we call him, the weapon. 8 punts on Sunday, 6 of which 50 or more yards, including a long of 60. If you have good special teams, you have good punter, you give yourself that much more of a chance to win the ball game. It's just the other units for the Cardinals, the offense and defense, just not able to capitalize on that.
How refreshing. We're not talking about the long snapper and the holder. And Lee is the holder. He's been the MVP. I know people are going to say, well, he's the punter, but he's definitely helped this team out in field position. When they go 3 and out or 5 and out, or they're not able to get past midfield, he's done a great job kicking inside the 20, allowing his coverage units. And one thing he doesn't get enough credit for is his hang time.
Well, and his coverage unit specifically. We saw Trent Sherfield save a ball from going into the end zone. Chase Edmonds downed it at the 2, and you're seeing that develop as well with new special teams coach Jeff Rogers.
Yeah, and T.J. Logan, we're starting to see him. He got to the corner yesterday. He showed his speed. Maybe you give him a couple snaps on offense. But for the most part, Andy Lee is under contract next year, and that's a good thing. And the Cardinals were able to get him when Carolina decided to go with a younger punter. He's done everything they've asked him to do, and he's really kept his team in the games, which is based on field position. We don't focus on special teams unless something goes wrong. He is definitely worthy of a Pro Bowl selection. I don't know where he ranks. I think he's 2nd or 3rd, and I don't know if that's in the NFL or in the NFC versus the AFC, but he has definitely put up Pro Bowl numbers.
They're the bright spot on Sunday, and I know we already brought up David Johnson with the dropped screen pass, but what Johnson is now doing running football, and keep in mind this is game number 3 with Byron Leftwich as the offensive coordinator. In each game, we've seen a little bit more of Johnson getting a little bit more touches as far as running the football. And then finally we saw him break off 2 long runs, one obviously called back because of a holding call, but over 100 yards, which 2 years ago in 2016, when you're talking about David Johnson and his ability to gain yards, it was an every week occurrence. It was 15 in a row before he got hurt in that final game of the regular season in 2016. But finally, he hits the century mark here in 2018.
Yeah, over the last 3 weeks, his numbers continue to increase. You could see he's running more to the outside. He's able to run through the tackles and bounce outside. We did see the stiff arm yesterday. We haven't seen a lot of that this year. People are wondering why was he only targeted a few times in the passing game. He did have 1 catch for 17 yards, but he also had 2 drops. And Josh Rosen only 20 passes, 9 for 20.
Yes.
So I mean, you just don't have a lot of targets to go around, and obviously you're going to target Christian Kirk, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, and then Ricky Seals-Jones. So he was targeted a few times. 1 catch for 17 yards, but he did have 2 drops in that game, and he's got to clean that up.
137 yards rushing for Johnson, carried the ball 25 times, averaged 5.5 yards every time he carried the football, and that's what you like to see, because if you're able to not play from behind, Cardinals again on Sunday found themselves playing from behind at least early in the ball game, but as long as you don't get too far behind, if you have a strong running attack, and some credit now for the offensive line as well to open up some running lanes for Johnson to find through, but some of it is just Johnson and his skill set, his ability to see lanes where they're not quite there yet, and being able to kind of predict the future a little bit and where he might be able to run, but certainly looked a lot better in his best game as far as a running back is concerned.
What I like about David Johnson, he always falls forward, and we're not seeing tackle for losses. You go back to the month of September, different coordinator, maybe different protection schemes, but he was getting a hit in the backfield. And when you see a running back get hit in the backfield, that's on the offensive line. There's nobody else involved there. That's the offensive line. So over the last couple of weeks, he's not getting hit in the backfield, and I love it. Even if it's a 1 or 2 yard gain, he falls forward, stretches that ball out at times, and maybe it's a 3 yard gain. Now you're sitting at 2nd and 7 versus 2nd and 9.
So 3 games now for Johnson in that 2016-2017 offense that Byron Leftwich has kind of brought to the forefront since taking over the play calling duties. So we'll see what happens coming up this Sunday when the Cardinals take on a Chargers team in Los Angeles. But good to see David Johnson running the football. Just need to see more of his teammates get involved as well so this Cardinals team can get on the right side of that win-loss column. All right, here on Cards Cover 2, time for the Bird Gang to sound off on a Monday afternoon. And, yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of questions and concerns for the Bird Gang right now here in 2018. We'll start with Twitter, and always can expect @Cardinals_31 to get involved in the show here. Wants to know, do you think this loss will be more demoralizing for the players than any of the previous losses as far as how they move forward?
I mean, it was a bad loss. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. I'm sure the guys, and there's not a lot of guys that were on the team when they gave up 58 points to the Seattle Seahawks. They're all I mean, it doesn't matter if you lose by 1, even though you're competitive. You lose by 20. I mean, it's the same thing. You win and lose in this league, and I don't like ties. So demoralizing. It's just disappointing. They had every opportunity to win that game.
Yeah, but some losses sting more than others.
They do.
Yesterday stung.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I like what Corey Peters said. This should sting for the next couple of days. Usually you get the 24-hour win or lose. No, this should hit home and say, this shouldn't have happened. But it did.
And as Coach Wilkes mentioned on Monday, you got to make sure that this loss doesn't linger to where the Raiders' loss factors into the Chargers game, the Packers game moving forward here in 2018. Still with Twitter, a question about Corey Cunningham and how would you assess his first game action in the NFL? And then some critique. Guy has amazing size and length, quick feet, very promising prospect for Ray Brown to work with.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. Now, he first quarter, I thought his first reps, obviously they must have targeted him a little bit when it came to their blitz packages. He was on the ground a few times. You don't want to see that from your left tackle. But if you want a great body of work over 4 quarters, he passed the eye test. And I mentioned earlier in the show, we'll see if Andre Smith, according to Steve Wilkes, looks like Andre Smith is still the right tackle. I would like to see Corey Cunningham for the remainder of the season get an opportunity to play there. Worst case scenarios, the Cardinals have a swing tackle, not only this year, but for the future.
And then that would be every draft pick that the Cardinals had still on the roster as far as being not just contributing, but major contributors.
And the Cardinals rookies lead the NFL in snaps this year. Now, it makes sense. Mason Cole started from week 1. Kirk started from week 1. Rosen now is getting the majority of reps, if not all the reps on game day. You throw in Chase Edmonds. He's a change of pace back, a rotation guy, plays on teams. And now Corey Cunningham has been active, and he's got his full first start under his belt. I think the future's promising for him and Ray Brown.
And 3 rookie free agents as well. Trent Sherfield, Zeke Turner, which I know you're very high on, and perhaps maybe he could find his way into the mix defensively, and then Dennis Gardeck as well.
I'm glad you mentioned those guys. All 3 guys are more special teams players. Sherfield's getting more opportunity on offense, But yeah, I think next year Zeke Turner will replace Dale Buchanan.
Bird Gang sound off. We move to Instagram and we stay with the offensive line. User wants to know, do you think that rethinking the offensive line starts with Rosen or the protection?
Well, they've changed the protection. It's just, I mean, he's going to see a lot of things that he's never seen before. I mean, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at him. So it's a combination. There's ways you can counter that with the play action. I think he's really good at the play action. That you can roll him out, cut the field in half, make a little simplify things for him. He doesn't have to look at the entire field when you're under center or in a shotgun. You got to look at the whole field and go through your progressions. I think it's a combination. They need to hold up in pass protection for 3 to 4 seconds. He needs to get rid of the ball between 2-5 and less.
More on Rosen. Question about his interception count. Do you find that concerning, or do you think other factors are involved?
I'll let you answer that because we've talked about this. I mean, again, Peyton Manning had over 20 interceptions his first year in the league. I think it was like 26 over 24. Troy Aikman, he didn't win a game his rookie season. We found out last night Steve Berline came in and won the game.
Won the game for the Cowboys when they went 1-15.
Yes.
Yeah. The number is concerning because it's 10, which sounds like a lot. When you have more interceptions than touchdowns, they're going to happen as a rookie. But his first 2 starts, he was turnover free. And now you're seeing, and I don't know if it's maybe because he's a little bit more comfortable with what they're asking and feels like he can not improvise, but maybe be a little bit more aggressive, and that's where he's getting into troubles trying to find receivers and fit balls into tight windows. And I don't know if it's the right decision or the wrong decision as far as his reads are concerned. I'm not in that quarterback's room, the offensive room, as far as when they break down the film, but you certainly don't want to see the interceptions, but as a rookie, not that I'm okay with it, I think you understand it.
The problem is the defense hasn't enforced a turnover since the Broncos game, so maybe we're not talking about turnovers. You got to win the turnover battle. Usually if you're +2 or +3, you're going to win that football game. Now, I am concerned with the completion percentage.
Yeah, it has not been good. I don't think he's only getting over 55% in one of his starts so far this season. Last question, Instagram, and again, it's talking about the offense, reflecting on how Leftwich has done so far. Do you think that he will stay as the offensive coordinator in 2019?
I mean, if that remains to be seen. Who knows if they're going to do a search, if he shows enough, and you really don't want to bring another coordinator in, so he's got to learn his third quarter in just one season. I think Leftwich is in line to be promoted to the offensive coordinator, but we need to let this play out. I would give him a B+ right now. I thought the last game could have been a little more creative. But again, it comes down to execution and players making plays, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But I think he's the front runner, but we need to let it play out first.
6 games left to go here in 2018. A lot of it could decide what happens in 2019 as we appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Monday afternoon using the hashtag CardsCovered2. Hashtag CardsCovered2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show.
Speaking of the British Bird Gang, they were in town this weekend.
I saw some of the pictures on social media.
Great fans, very passionate. Thank you for your support. Thank you for making the trip. Say that again, Jimmy?
German, and
sorry.
British too.
British too, yeah. I mean, the fact is they traveled. They're huge fans. I think it's like maybe midnight there right now.
Don't ask me about the time difference. I can't.
Well, the good news about our show is that you could find it 10 minutes from now, maybe when you get home tonight, maybe tomorrow. So that's the good news. We have a shelf life.
Download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. And we will do this again with you on Wednesday afternoon here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. Special thanks to those behind the scenes: Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Grayson Cho, Brandon Natus, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sipes. This has been Cards Cover 2. Have yourselves a wonderful Monday. We'll talk to you Wednesday here on Cards Cover 2.